Well, hello, YouTubers. We're going to resume the conspiracy theory series from episode 2, Get Castro. Alright, a quick update about my lightsabers. No, they're not finished. However, my PVC pipe is on its way, and so is my colored electric tape. I gotta wait for those before I show you guys these sabers. And I know you guys are anticipating this. But anyway, let's get on with this. Get Castro. If the Cold War incubated a kind of national hysteria, nowhere was the delirium more frenzied than in Florida of the early 60s. Clandestine plots to topple Fidel Castro bred like mosquitoes in the Everglades. The U.S.-backed Bay of Pigs invasion, which ended in disaster, only compounded the tropical madness. As Cold War fever rose, the CIA launched one of its most scandalous episodes, a series of surreal attempts to assassinate Castro, employing Florida's Cuban exiles and the nation's top mafiosi. Oh boy. As President Johnson later put it, "We are running a damn murder incorporated in the Caribbean." Over 3 presidents had at least some knowledge of the CIA plots. In several cases, the agency appears to have operated autonomously and against presidential authority. What's up with the CIA? Well, as previously in the first episode, the CIA was involved with drugs. Now it's involved with killing off leaders. Or commies, as they like to call them. In 1975, Senate hearings held in the wake of Watergate's revelations exposed the CIA's so-called executive action programs. The Senate Select Intelligence Committee, or SSIC, chaired by Frank Church, uncovered 8 failed attempts to ice Castro and a handful of murder plots aimed at other heads of state. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm so worried. Yeah. Quite conservatively, the committee decided to dub its findings alleged assassination plots. Moreover, according to the testimony of CIA Brahmins, all of the murder plots misfired. I wonder why. They misfired. No one knows exactly why they misfired. But I think it just might have not been executed properly. Notwithstanding these claims, there is reason to believe the hearings rooted up only at sampling of the agency's political hits. As good a place as any to begin the tale is with that elemental spook E. Howard Hunt, the CIA propagandist whose name became synonymous with Watergate, Bay of Pigs, and a score card subterfuge that defined a quarter century. Returning from Cuba, the CIA officer drew up a list of strategic recommendations. At the top of his list, Wacko Castro. The agency apparently took Hunt's advice, for in 1960, the CIA Brain Trust began plotting the Cuban leader's permanent elimination. To get the ball rolling, in August of that year, the CIA's Office of Medical Services sprinkled a box of Castro's favorite Cuban cigars with a virulent toxin. The resulting stogie was so lethal that merely sucking it would terminate the hardiest dictator within moments. Very Three Stooges. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Castro was to visit the United Nations in New York, and it is possible that the tainted cigars were to be preferred there. What happened next isn't clear. According to one report, the NYPD was informed by CIA officers of aborted plans to kill Castro with a box of exploding cigars. Three Stooges style. Exploding cigars. How does one make exploding cigars? How does one make exploding cigars? Well, they gotta have the right amount of gunpowder, and they gotta mix it around with the, tobacco and the nicotine and the flavoring, and they gotta make sure the gunpowder doesn't taste like, bad eggs, and they gotta mask the flavoring of bad eggs in there. And at the same time, they gotta make it to where the gunpowder is triggered by just basically touching it. Like putting your lips to the cigar. But anyway, I'm not a scientist or technician. I don't know how these things go. Other unrealized plans, including several intended to assassinate the man's character, if not the man himself, managed to be even less practical than the gag stooges. Here's one. One early brainstorm involved spraying Castro's broadcasting studio in Havana with super acid, a concentrated form of LSD, which it was hoped would cause Fidel to tune in, turn on, and go nuts during a public speech. Sounds familiar? Let's think back to the last episode, which was also dealing with LSD. Oh boy. This stuff gets real. There's a variation on that theme, where at the CIA's Technical Services Division, lacing those all-purpose cigars with LSD, thereby dispatching the unflappable Marxists on a proverbial bad trip. Another scheme proposed sprinkling Castro's shoes with thallium salts, a potent depilatory that would cause his beard, eyebrows, and pubic hair to fall out. His cherished Latin machismo called into question. Castro, with theoretically wither in stature and self-respect, like a politically deprived Samson. Another one. As for the more lethal plots, one idea called for Castro, an avid scuba diver, to be presented with a wetsuit by an American lawyer, then negotiating for the release of the Bay of Pigs prisoners. The Technical Services Division went so far as to purchase a scuba suit and contaminate the respirator with tuberculosis bacilli. Nothing if not scrupulous. They also treated the suit itself with fungus spores that would cause rare skin disease, murder foot. Alas, the shuttle diplomat took the initiative to get Castro an uncontaminated suit, thereby defusing the plan that, if successful, would hardly have fallen under the category of covert operation. Another Ian Fleming-esque scheme called for an exploding conch shell to be placed on the seafloor in an area where Castro often went diving. Ultimately, this plan was scrapped as impractical. Really? Was it? They could have done it! They could have pulled all those things off, but they chose not to. Interesting. Oh boy. In his autobiography, CIA operative Felix Rodriguez, a close confidant of George Bush, says he tried 3 times to enter Cuba on Kill Castro missions. The missions were his idea, and at the time he didn't know that CIA was his silent patron. In 1987, asked by the Iran-Contra Committee whether he took part in the CIA's attempt to poison Castro's favorite smokes, Rodriguez replied indignantly, "No, sir, I didn't, but I did volunteer to get it in 1961 with a telescopic rifle." Really? They had to put profanity in there? He had to say that stuff? Really, this is what he said. "No, sir, I did, but I did volunteer to kill that son of a bitch in 1961 with a telescopic rifle." He's not one. He's not an SOAB, which is acronym for said. Whatever he just said. SOAB. New acronym. Oh boy. Perhaps the most visionary proposal came from the fertile mind of General Edward Lansdale, who supervised the Kennedy administration's covert war on Castro. The general hoped to spark a counter-revolution by spreading the word to devout Cuban Catholics that the second coming was imminent and that Castro was none other than the Antichrist. At the appointed hour, Christ himself would surface off the shores of Cuba aboard an American submarine as star shell flares illuminated the heavens. In a peak of Cold War rapture, it was hoped the Cubans would rise up and spontaneously overthrow their satanic leader. Wonder how that worked. It probably didn't work. Because, for one, you cannot exactly predict the second coming. I mean, all of us Christians, as well as Muslims, Jews, pagans, whoever you are and whoever you believe in, we all know for a fact that we can't predict when the end's coming. We will never predict very correctly when the end is coming. Nor will we know what will happen. So, in light of these fantasies, it might be tempting to conclude that the CIA could have hit the broadside of a barn with a deluxe sniper scope. As in many an area of the CIA's dirty linen, low comedy tended to soften public outrage, a circumstance in which agency crypt keepers may have taken comfort. Okay, so however the agency's assassination program was anything but frivolously pursued. Concurrent with the earliest Castro plots of 1960, the CIA's deputy director, Richard Bessel, asked his science advisor, Sidney Gottlieb, to research assassination techniques. The proof to Gottlieb's labor was a portable murder kit, complete with a lethal biological agent, hypodermic needles, and rubber gloves. Question: was their obsession with rubber gloves? I mean, they could just shoot him, but they had to go all out. There's the reason why I don't trust America's government, because they do shady things like this. And no one knows about it, except for the ones who are in power. Gottlieb hand-delivered the kit to Africa, where the CIA station chief had been ordered to assassinate Congolese dictator Patrice Lumumba. Very funny. Apparently, attempts to poison Lumumba failed. In 1975, the SIC found that the CIA had sponsored a separate hit on Lumumba using European mercenary assassins. That plan fell apart when the hitman turned out to be as out of control as an unguided missile, in the words of the agency's Congo station chief. According to the official story, Lumumba's own countrymen saved the CIA from having to do their dirty work, taking the initiative in murdering the leader in January 1961. Really, guys? The CIA has to have other people do its dirty business? Why don't they just do it themselves? Oh my gosh. But doubts linger about the CIA's supposed hands-off role. In his book, In Search of Your Enemies, agency veteran John Stockwell writes that one CIA officer boasted to him about driving around with Lumumba's body in the trunk of his car. A few months later, Lumumba's timely demise, Dominican Republic autocrat Rafael Trujillo was assassinated. Although the CIA had generously donated guns to dissidents who made it clear that they intended to off Trujillo, it was the CIA swore local boys who lethally perforated their leader. Of course, it's quite possible they did it with the CIA provided arms. Okay. The CIA, the world's most dangerous people, most dangerous intelligence agency force, likes to allow people to kill their leaders. Author Dick Russell relates another possibility in his book about the JFK assassination. The man who knew too much. Russell tracked down and interviewed a retired Army colonel named Bill Bishop after hearing him described as some kind of contract killer for the CIA. When Russell met him, Bishop blithely announced, "I made a hit on Trujillo. That's one mission I'm kind of proud of, because a lot of my associates said it couldn't be done." If fortuitously timed assassinations bore a few CIA fingerprints, plots in which the agency took the initiative always seemed to go unconsummated. If we're to believe CIA luminaries like former director Richard Helms, for instance, in February 1960, Helms endorsed a plan to see the Iraqi junta chief Abdul Karim Qasim be incapacitated with a poisoned handkerchief. Although the whiz kids in the technical services division whipped up a toxic hanky and forwarded it to Qasim, the general evidently never got a runny nose. Okay. What is up with their obsession with killing people? Anyway, so, considering the capriciousness of murder by sniffles, perhaps it's understandable that the CIA turned to the mafia, old pros in the liquidation racket. In the case of Castro, it was a match made in, well, heaven. It was a match made in hell, but who cares? But anyway, for the mafia also had its heart set on killing the Cuban. Mob boss Mayor Lansky had already put $1 million bounty on Castro's head. Castro's ride to power in Cuba following the 1959 revolution didn't sit well with the mob, to put it mildly. The Cuban leader had confiscated the mafia's lucrative casino operations in Havana, which were even more profitable than the syndicate's holdings in Las Vegas. Of course, recruiting the mob was nothing new. During World War II, the Office of Naval Intelligence had used mafiosi to guard the New York waterfronts against saboteurs and to assist in the Allied invasion of Sicily. For troubled mob boss Lucky Luciano won an early prison release, and the American and Sicilian mafias got a new lease on life. Or did they? But to sick the good fellows on Castro must have seemed like the ultimate neat idea. And as far as Cosa Nostra bosses were concerned, putting a powerful government agency in the mafia's step made obvious appeal. When you get out the way. So, with the imprimatur of agency director Ellen Dulles and using dirty tricks freelancer Robert Mayhew as a go-between, the CIA made the mob an offer it couldn't refuse. A $150,000 reward for anyone tough enough to bump off Castro, but more importantly, government sanctions to do the job. On loan from Howard Hughes, Mayhew had handled a number of sensitive projects for the CIA. These include a bogus porno film production starring a doppelganger of Indonesian President Sukarno in a Richard Nixon spearheaded propaganda war on Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis. According to Mayhew, a hard-boiled Nixon, swept away by the intrigue, barked, "It turns out we have to kill the bastard, just don't do it on American soil." In the autumn of 1960, 2 months before John F. Kennedy's narrow electoral victory, Mayhew introduced his pal, Vegas Don John Roselli, to the CIA's Jim O'Connell. In Miami, Roselli introduced 2 spooks to Chicago Godfather Sam Momo Giancana and Florida's powerful mob boss Santos Traficante. Both Giancana and Traficante had seen their interests in Cuba frizzle when Castro shuttered the drug and gambling rackets. Traficante was especially peeved. He had controlled Cuba's rackets before Castro locked him up in the aftermath of the '59 revolution. So as not to blow their cover, the mobsters adopted suitably innocuous codenames. Roselli was John Ralston, and Giancana was introduced as Sam Gold. The redoubtable Trafficante retained a measure of his ethnicity, becoming Joe Bacora. Now, the Industrious Technical Services Division set about producing a batch of botulinum toxic pills that would dissolve in soup, coffee, or cocktails. After a few refinements and successful tests on monkeys, the CIA passed the pills onto Roselli in February 1961. The plan was to have one of Trafficante's well-placed Cuban contacts slip Castro the lethal Mickey. The first attempt went alright when his designated poisoner, a member of Castro's inner circle, lost his job. Oh, so sad. A second attempt in April failed as well, reportedly because Castro suddenly stopped frequenting his favorite restaurant. Oh, blah, blah, blah. After the Bay and Pigs rout in April 1961, the mob plot went dormant for nearly a year. When it was reactivated, Mayhew and Momo were judged to be security risks and were left out. Momo's boasting about knocking off Castro had reached J. Edgar Hoover's twitching ears, jeopardizing the CIA's deniability. Helms assigned a new agency coordinator to the project, the hard-drinking, tough-talking William Harvey. Harvey formalized the agency's assassination bureau on the codenamed ZR Rifle, and on the Cuban front, he now headed Task Force W, the CIA's anti-Castro mission. Phase 2 featured more poison pills, rifles, and explosives over the course of 11 more months, but all these plots failed as well. Castro kept on breathing. Woo! He kept on breathing!
He's like Darth Vader. You can't kill him.
Oh, you can kill Darth Vader, Quentin. That's enough.
Not exactly.
And in February 1963, Harvey released Agent Roselli from his tour of duty. Neither Harvey nor Helms. Neither of them had informed CIA Director McCone of Mafia Phase 2. Very shady business it is. Very shady business. So what did the Kennedy brothers know, and when did they know it? That became a subtle but emphatic theme in a testimony of agency regulars before the Senate's Church Committee. Though CIA honchos tried to show that they were just following Kennedy directives, the committee never reached a definitive conclusion. In his biography of Richard Helms, the man who kept the secrets, Thomas Powers called these murky waters the deepest secret of all. Who gave the orders? Who did? Who did?
You can't kill.
We know that the mob plots began before the JFK's election under the Eisenhower administration. Oh, one of our best presidents in the history of the United States of America was probably involved in this. Guys, come on. This is not good. Not good. More than a year after the first CIA Mafia collaboration, Attorney General Robert Kennedy was briefed on the operation. Lawrence Houston, the CIA's house lawyer at the time, testified that the younger Kennedy was merciful because his prosecution of Giancana and other mobsters had been jeopardized. Ooh, jeopardized. Houston testified that RFK declared, "I trust that if you ever try to do business with organized crime again with gangsters, you will let the Attorney General know." At that very moment, however, Harvey, Helms, and Roselli were thick as thieves. But there was also reason to believe that early in his administration, Jack Kennedy knew about the Mafia operation. According to JFK's sometime mistress, Judith Campbell Exner, who was also Giancana's mole, the president conferred with Giancana early on. Those contracts, Campbell said, had to do with the elimination of Castro. Has to do with the elimination of Castro. But there is evidence that the Kennedy brothers, though supportive of early assassination plotting, later took a dim view of the killing spree. Robert Kennedy reportedly told two aides that upon learning of the first mafia plot, he threw it off. He was mistaken. In late 1961, the president was clearly pondering the policy of murder when he asked journalist Ted Zulk, "What would you think if I ordered Castro to be assassinated?" When Zulk expressed his dismay, Kennedy agreed and said his advisors had been pressuring him to have Castro killed. According to Senator George Smathers, himself a fierce Castro opponent, JFK was horrified at the prospect of a Castro assassination and complained that the CIA was almost autonomous. Apparently, the Kennedy brothers weren't informed of yet another series of CIA attempts to plug Castro beginning in the autumn of '63. Harvey's replacement, Desmond Fitzgerald, the idea man behind the poison wetsuit and explosive conch shell, began cultivating an agent ideally placed to knock off the Cuban leader. Rolando Cubella, a major in the Cuban army, was not only an intimate of Castro's, but a disgruntled one. Unhappy with the growing Soviet influence in Cuba, and a deception remarkable for its audacity, Fitzgerald, with Helms's approval, met with Cubella in Paris, posing as Robert Kennedy's personal representative without RFK's knowledge. Cubella later told journalist Anthony Summers that Fitzgerald ultimately claimed to be a U.S. senator. Fitzgerald, of all people, without any authority to do so, promised Cubella that the U.S. government would fully back a coup against Castro.
Hey, does this look like,
Quentin, I'm busy. I can't. Quentin, that's enough. But anyway. So, Fitzgerald subsequently arranged for Cubella to receive a pin that could inject poison, also known as Blackleaf 40, into a certain blustering autocrat. But while the CIA was talking termination with Cubella, Kennedy had already softened his formerly hawkish Cuban policy. To be sure, Robert Kennedy was still approving pinprick assaults on Cuba, but the administration seems to have changed its tack. In early '63, when the U.S.-Soviet nuclear tests began under negotiation, the Kennedy administration began cracking down on unauthorized raids against Cuba and on Soviet ships anchored there by the Revanchist exiles. CIA contact agents were among the anti-Castro Cubans detained and prosecuted. And as Anthony Summers reported in his JFK assassination study, Conspiracy, during the final months of his life, Kennedy sent diplomatic feelers out to Castro. Through an American advisor to the UN, Kennedy had begun to make secret overtures to Castro. At precisely the same moment, Fitzgerald was assuring Cubella that the Kennedys would back an anti-Castro coup. Although stealth diplomacy didn't get very far, Kennedy was assassinated 2 months later. Oh no, this uprooted film. But anyway, the president's former special advisor, historian Arthur Schlesinger, found the CIA's timing peculiar. As he told Summers, "The whole Cubella thing raises even deeper questions. The CIA was reviving the assassination plots at the very time President Kennedy was considering the possibility of normalizing the relations with Cuba. An extraordinary action. It wasn't incompetence, which in the case of the CIA can't be excluded. It was a studied attempt to subvert national policy." Well, that's the end of the episode. A very heated episode, I'm afraid. So, here's a preview for next episode. Alright. After Castro, we got episode 3, Breeding Better People. The following two statements were authored in the same year, 1925, by two public figures generally supposed to have not much in common. Those who are physically and mentally unhealthy and unfit must not perpetuate their sufferings in the bodies of their children. Through educational means, the state must teach individuals that illness is not a disgrace but a misfortune for which people are to be pitied. Yet at the same time, it is a crime and a disgrace to make this affliction the worse by passing it on to innocent creatures out of a merely egotistic yearning. It is better for all the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit for continuing their kind. The latter opinion comes from Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in the U.S. Supreme Court, writing for the majority in the case of Buck v. Bell. The foreign statement appeared in Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. Eugenics wasn't just for the Nazis. Well, that was the trailer for this episode called Breeding Better People. Now, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. I don't do this for fun. I do this for educational purposes. That's why I have this book. This book is my life. This book is my weapon exposing the government and all their hateful policies. Their foreign policy is not good. They do nothing. They do everything for everybody else, but they don't do anything for this country. Well, that's it. So, bye-bye, guys. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. You will get more conspiracy theory videos, and you just might get to see my lightsabers. Okay? So, bye-bye. Adieu, auf Wiedersehen, and Skull to y'all Viking fans.